why don't we get started? I mean, unless people are out shoveling snow, they should be here tonight. And
by the way, I've already started recording.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just a quick check. Do we have any first timers here with us tonight that like to identify themselves, tell us a little bit about what you're up to? Either everyone's a repeat or no one's willing to volunteer.
I've been joining. I haven't been on in a long time, but I've been a member of this.
Oh, yeah. No, I know that, Jim. Yeah.
But yes, I'm new. I'm new at least to the Astro photography.
Oh, okay.
So it's Glenn Sarlito. Yeah.
Yep.
And I just got two things. Santa gave me a Slew subscription.
Oh,
So
you're the guy with the.
I'm the guy.
Yeah.
And then also I got I went and got Pix Insight, what have you, for the 45-day trial. So I'm just looking for a workflow.
We all are, Glenn.
Okay.
There's lots of workflows.
Right now I'm so much beneath a beginner. I'm in a black hole, So that's where I'm starting out at. But I like Slew. I observed more objects in the past week than I have in decades. Honestly, over 100 that I've never seen before.
Well, that's great.
Hey, Glenn, I found a website a couple weeks ago because actually I was naughty and didn't do a lot of processing over the course of the last year, and I took some images recently and got back into it, and I forgot a lot more than I remembered. And I found a website that had a really simple, intuitive, easy to follow workflow for Pix Insight that gets results. It's not as heavy duty as what a lot of these guys use, but it will take an image and allow you to stack them and process them and get something that's usable and visible. I will put a link to the site in the chat for this meeting, and I say go for it. It was pretty well put together and it worked.
Who was the author?
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay,
I couldn't even tell you who the author was. Let me find it.
So
I've got it here in my bookmark.
What I have to learn is Slew has a bunch of they have 9 different telescopes, or 6, or maybe no. How many? But we have 9. They have 6, I think. They all have their individual presets and all that. So I'm learning that too at the same time. I guess there's a lot more, goes into it. But from Slew, we get what's called a FITS data files, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
that's normal.
You're talking about stacking.
Yeah, and all of that is pretty nicely automated within Pix Insight. I mean, if you have the raw data, from Slew or from many other kind of iTelescope, others, you can just go ahead and probably follow that routine using the WBP or WBPP process. Puts all together, stacks them, crops them, aligns them, does all that kind of stuff, and then you follow the process that's probably in that link.
How do I find that? How do I get that link?
Just open up the chat window.
Right, I'm looking for the chat window.
Yeah, I stuck it in there. Just open the chat window. It's the lower right. There's a square, a circle, with a triangle on top. Just to the left of it is a little call out balloon. Click on that. It'll open up. Thank you. Yeah, like I said, this is a really simple LRGB workflow, but it worked well. And he had some other stuff on the site that was decent too. It's not atom block level material, but it gets you to a picture, and it's a good basic workflow to start with.
Yeah.
So Glenn,
I saw that Astro Geek. He's got a lot of YouTube videos too.
Yeah.
So Glenn, what level of membership do you have at SLU?
I have what they call the apprentice membership, not the astronomy. So mine, I guess the astronomy, you can get 5 missions and then 5 advanced missions. With apprentice, you only get 1 advanced mission. 5 missions, but at any time, but only 1 advanced.
Okay.
And it's tough because I got SLU because I just wanted to do, I like lunar photography. At least I like the moon. And so, in fact, I was surprised I only got 1 like on our website page, Facebook page, from the recent post. New moon coming up. At any rate, that's another story. What was I going to say? Regarding the moon, that's why I got onto SLU, because I want to be able to, I want to go daily, every day, take pictures of the moon, go through the whole cycle, whole phase. But for 6 days out of the month, they don't have any moon views.
Oh, sad. And the moon images, what are they? They're, most of us planetary folks or who actually do the moon. Now I've actually deviated from the normal course. I assume that SLU does not have any video clips of the moon, so you're not doing any lucky imaging of the moon.
No, it's all FITS data. It's just
A single.
Yeah, I think they use the ZWO camera. I think that's the one they use.
Okay.
Here, I got it right here. Let me get if I can find my book. The color itself. It's a 17-inch. And it's a Finger Lake Instruments is the CCD camera.
Okay.
That's what they use for the moon, for full capture, full disc. And then they have another telescope that they only get a partial. And that's a Celestron 1400 for the 14-inch Celestron, which they have a CCD camera in there too.
So did they do they with the
There's no video.
with the fit information? Did they tell you what filter they used to on the ZWO camera?
I bet you I could look. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I bet you it's there. They do give a lot of information.
Yeah. Okay.
Tons. Good at this is Matt Rhino.
Yeah, because I've been in the past I've done video imaging of the moon, but I thought since I have a new ZWO camera 2600, if you use a long enough wavelength filter and a short enough exposure time, you can actually not have to do a video clip. And if you with a long wavelength filter like an S2 filter, which is the longest of the narrow band filters, that'll remove a lot of the scatter and atmospheric distortion of the moon. And then if you do a really short duration, like in my case, I did 100 millisecond image exposure time. Boy, you can get a really sharp and really excellent image of the moon just using a regular deep sky camera. I was just looking for the image here. I'll show you in a second. And so it's actually a lot easier now. Of course the thing is you don't have any. I actually taught a SLU course for the Ritzard Planetarium in Waukesha. Bought a SLU membership, the astronomy membership, for their participants, and so I ran a course on teaching folks how to how to use SLU. And I tell you, long and short, in some cases, I was kind of disappointed now in the maintenance and the focusing of have you been run into any of those kinds of issues with the telescopes down there?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Weather, but still, look at how many days have we had since Christmas? Hardly one or two, maybe one night, maybe here.
Yeah.
And I've had almost every day. Missed one day. That's been it.
Sure.
As far as weather goes, but the maintenance isn't so bad. But sometimes there's a glitch that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a hit or a miss too at times. But I'm doing it for the Astro for the deep sky also. So we have a SLU membership at of course we have the SLU membership at the club.
Right.
Say, Glenn, back to PixInsight, which is daunting for so many people, including yours truly. I pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down. It's not like a bicycle, riding a bike. But there is something I tried last year, which is a automated process with weighted batch pre-processing, where it pretty much is automated all the way through. It's sort of like cheating. You make a few selections, but it'll render a final image for you with deconvolution, with ABE and DBE and some other aspects. So it's really a way to get to an image without necessarily following a workflow. Like I said, it's basically cheating. It's sort of maybe like using GoTo instead of knowing the star hopping, but it's a way to get an image.
Yeah, and that's the goal. I'm not too intimidated by PixInsight because I think it's easier than Photoshop, to be honest with you. Just different terminology. That's where I'm having a problem with. And I like the histogram of PixInsight. So the stretching, I like that aspect of it. There's a lot of aspects I like about PixInsight instead of doing all this through like Photoshop. So, but it's still daunting. PixInsight is still daunting. But and thanks for the tip on that. But it's getting down to a workflow, and that's where I'm at right now.
Another alternative, I don't know if you've ever considered it, is Astro Astro Pixel Processor, APP.
I've heard of that.
And you just follow the defaults. They're pretty good, and I think it's simpler than PixInsight.
Yeah, I used to use that too.
I've started using Cyril, which looks like it's an open source project, but it looks like it's making a lot of improvements, like gaining some capabilities there. It seems like it has a lot of potential and power there, but it seems a little simpler as far as the interface goes.
Is there a cost to that one?
Cyril's free, and it runs on Windows or Mac or Linux.
How's that spelled?
SIRIL.
SIRIL.
Right. Yep. Yeah, it's an open source project.
All right. It'd be $270 for pick.
Yeah, just to try it out and see,
Yeah. I'm giving PixInsight like 45 days, and I'll get out from there.
Yeah. Well, don't get discouraged.
I'm not. No, trust me, I'm not discouraged. I'm having fun.
Yeah.
I'm having a lot of fun with it. I can see it. I'm having a lot of fun with it. So what I came to join the club for was this.
Yeah, good. Because we can come up. I do this for students right out of it. These are Carroll University students interested in astrophotography. And I used to teach. I tried to do all kinds of simplified programs and so on and so forth. And I said, well, hey, these are college level kids, and I want to kind of get them going in the right direction, and so I kind of came up with a Pix Insight for Dummies with a minimum of process steps that they could then start with Pix Insight and then grow into doing more elaborate things. But and again, it's getting you started and interested. So there are ways of getting going without feeling too intimidated.
And Dennis, I think your Pix Insight video is on the club's YouTube channel. So it's something that you can use to follow along with. And when I do processing, I often just play Adam Block's stuff alongside, or Dennis's stuff alongside, on a separate monitor, separate computer, just to work the way through it. So
right.
So
And over time, your workflow will keep changing. So in a couple of years, you can take that same raw data, go through it again, and come up with a lot better result as you learn.
Right. I think, Mike, a lot of people are doing that now, with all the Russ Croman stuff. It really breathes new life into older data.
Yeah, that's why I really strongly encourage the Pix Insight platform, because all these AI programs are all gravitating like RC Astro, as Kevin mentioned, are all gravitating to the Pix Insight platform. So they get embedded as a process in Pix Insight. And so I'm now using 3 of them that has really changed the quality of the image processing, and also reducing the time. There's Blur Exterminator, Noise Exterminator, Star Exterminator, and then Pix Insight has this new color calibration that I swear is just absolutely phenomenal. I've never seen Adam Block have an orgasm before, but he did on YouTube when he introduced SPCC, the new Gaia-based. The Gaia satellite is also not only getting all of the proper information about stars, but it's doing the spectral analysis. So you can download for SPCC the Gaia database that includes not only the plate solve information for the position of all these stars, and in fact stars that areas of the sky like north of our Milky Way, where there's where we basically have a harder time doing plate solves with this new Gaia database. It's just incredible.
5 gigabytes worth.
Yes. Oh, okay.
65 gigabytes.
It's worth it.
Oh, I got it. I downloaded it.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
I took 10 hours, something like that. It kept going. But 65. I had to do a lot of searching for data, more space to do it.
Yeah.
But 5. It's a big file, but worth it. What I heard it's.
So
all right. No more Pix Insight commercials from me. I'm sorry.
The other things that people are imaging, or how's the weather been? I guess that's part of the problem. Not Glenn's problem, not my problem. I have hardware problems, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But I got
problem because on Saturday nights we got SLU at the club. There's SLU right there at the club. So
yeah. Well, I'm down here in Arizona. I have a clear night tonight, and you're talking to you guys.
Oh yeah. But yeah, even on Saturday nights, we at least have SLU. Yeah, at least we can. Oh, chances are, chances are.
Katie, I saw that you had posted some pictures in the last month or so. What have you been
Yeah, what did I do? I did the Monkey Head Nebula and the Flaming Star.
Mhm.
So that was December. I can't remember the last clear night. Maybe a month.
Yeah,
It's been pretty sad.
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, those were exciting. I want to go back, and I did kind of just a quick process to play with it a little bit, but I'll definitely be going back to redo those and just learn and fine tune.
Good, good. Other things that people are working on.
I just recently completed 2 versions of M33 that I took on F-scope at the club. I spent some time putting Nina on the imaging computer out there for telescope control and image acquisition, and it saw as the first full end-to-end capture with Nina on that scope. Worked really well. But I processed it in LRGB, and then I did one with added some HA to it. And I posted those, and then I've also been working at my home with my home setup, which was that little rig behind me. It's a small refractor. I've been imaging the Pleiades. I got about 20 hours in the Pleiades from my front yard, and I've been having a lot of problems with my flats. They're just not they're not applying properly, and I think it has to do with my camera. But I'm at wit's end. I keep beating my head about it. I can show you what my current version of the picture looks like with all the big dust motes in it that aren't visible. I actually have it open in PixInsight. So let me see if I can bring that up.
Sure.
I'll show you what I'm talking about. If you guys can see this.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can see like right here. There's circles. There's like dust motes everywhere, and I just, for the life of me, I cannot get my flats to process properly with this. And this is just, stacked in the first stretch. I've done very little with it at this point.
When you look at your flats, how do they look? I mean, are the dust motes?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I don't think they look as good as they could. Let me see if I can find the master flat.
Yeah, if you could show us your master. Are you using a color camera?
Yeah, I have an ASI 294 MC 294 Pro, which is the color one. So let me see.
How long are your flats? How long do you take?
Well, here's my master flat, and you can kind of see some of the dust motes in there. I have tried short flats. I have tried longer flats. They say with the 294 MC Pro, you're supposed to do at least 3-second long flats, 3 to 7 seconds, they say. So I have to use a lot of paper and be in front of my scope to block light to get a long exposure like that. That's in the 27,000 range for exposure.
Well, okay. That was going to be my question: is what percentage of your maximum?
I'm doing about. I try to get it between 25 and 30K. 30K is where I shoot for.
Right.
And I don't know if you can see any of this, but this is my master flat. This is what it looks like after being stacked and processed in WBPP.
Have you ever tried to use these neutral density gel filters?
When I take my flats?
Yeah.
No, I have not.
What it will do is it will restrict the light coming in, and it will slow down the time, or it'll take longer to do the flats. And I was having problems with horizontal lines when I was doing flats with my RASA and the 294. And I solved it by putting in 3 or 4 sheets of this neutral density gel filter, and I got longer flats, and it solved the problem.
Okay, I'll have to look at that, because honestly, it's
like
getting
it's like a 10
I
or
spend
12
hours
hour
imaging, and then I can't get a
expenditure,
workable.
and took care of the problem.
Yes. Do you have like a link to what you're talking
Well,
about?
just go into Google and say neutral density gel filter. It's just a piece of plastic that's very thin. It's kind of smoky looking.
Okay.
So it's called.
Photographers use this, I guess, commonly. I didn't know about it till just recently.
So
density
neutral density gel.
Yeah, neutral density gel filter. They come in sheets. You can try one, try two, and do it repeatedly till you get what you want.
Okay.
Yeah, I see it. I see it on Amazon, about $16.98 on Amazon.
So, I was using a light source, like a Pegasus light source, but it was too,
Mhm.
at the lowest setting was still too bright.
Yeah, I've actually got a little flats panel that was made for me by the old observatory director, and his name is Paul. Paul made it for me.
Sure.
And it's designed for my 72 millimeter refractor, so it's only about that big, the light source. And I've been putting paper on it. I've tried using the sky with t-shirts, to block light and that kind of stuff, and nothing has worked. And what's weird is, when I first got the camera, I was doing this and it worked fine, but lately it seems like it's not working as well. So I'll look at this neutral density.
Yeah.
I see it right now. They sell it on
Well,
Amazon.
I had the same camera you do, so that's why I'm optimistic for you.
Yeah, I'll look at it. How many? You said you use 3 sheets and
About
go
3 or
for
4.
5 seconds.
It takes more. It's different between the Rasa as compared to when I used it with a 9 1/4 inch, edge
Yeah.
telescope. Then I don't need it, but I need it with the Rasa.
Okay.
What
Yeah,
color
I'll take a
gel
look
is,
at
can I
this.
just ask, what color gel? What color is the gel?
It's kind of, it's just like
Here.
gray.
Okay, all right.
I'll show you. I'll
Neutral
show you.
density
Here it is on
all the
Amazon. I'll
time
show
for
it
my
to you.
cameras. I use neutral density NDFs all the time for my camera.
Yeah.
I got different gels and all that. Never figured for astronomy for that. Huh.
Here's
Learn something
the
every
stuff
night.
right here on Amazon.
Yeah.
That I
Wow.
found. This is
Yeah,
the first
that looks
one that
like it.
came up.
Oh
That's
yeah,
it.
there you go. Yeah.
Six
There's a
sheets
place
for
you can get 'em free.
$16.98 or something like that.
Yeah.
There's a
Well, I
place in
saw the
Bayview you can
suggestion
walk
on the
to.
internet and I tried it and it worked.
All right. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll try that. Hopefully it works, because it's frustrating. You spend all these hours taking the images and everything, and then you stack them and you can't get a workable image to process. Or you got to live with, seeing the dust motes, and which are ugly. I don't like them. So
Jim, what are you
So I got a
what are you
question.
using as a light source?
well, I've done 2 things. Like I said, I've got a flat panel that I got from Paul. It's a little LED kind of, I don't know if it's LED, but it's a small little round flat panel that he made that I
Okay.
plug in the 12 volts, and I use that with paper to subdue the light, because
Sure.
obviously I can't get a 5-second flat directly at it. I've also tried multiple layers of white t-shirt with the sky.
Mhm.
I tried the ceiling inside my house one time, tried that even, somebody said, well, try pointing it straight up at your ceiling and try that.
Mhm.
No matter what I do, they all turn out the same when I process them. But interestingly enough, when I did the imaging on F-scope, I didn't have any problems with getting the flats to take. So it's telling me it's something. The camera that I have, I know is known problematic for flats. A lot of people have a lot of issues with flats in that camera, but a lot of people also figure out how to work it and get it to go. And like I said, I used to have no problem with it, but over the course of the last couple of years, I've had a lot of issues with the flats not working right. So I don't know if something changed in the camera or my software or what, but I'll try these neutral density gel sheets. I think those look like a good idea.
Mhm.
I have a question before you move on.
Well, just a second, Glenn. Jim, you may want to look back. We had a video where Arun, who has a 294, did a presentation just on flats. That's maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah, I've looked at that.
Okay.
I've seen that. I was at that presentation.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Glenn?
I've done what he said to do too.
Yeah.
That's why I've been trying so many different things. It's just I'll get this figured out. See, they look like they have a kit that's got 3 different ones. There's a light gray, a medium gray, and a deep gray kit for $12 on Amazon. I might just buy that and try a combination of those.
Mhm. Say, and are you using PixInsight's weighted batch processing?
Yeah, I've actually tried Deep Sky Stacker and WBPP, and they turn out identical.
Yeah.
The final image is identical no matter what I use to do the stacking.
Yeah. I've got two. I have one flat screen. This is the sketching pads, but this particular model comes with a rheostat, and you can crank it down pretty far.
Yeah.
So this seems to work really well. I do have to still.
What model is that one, Dennis?
What's that?
What model is that one? I see a lot of them on Amazon, and I never know which one would work right, or if it's got the wrong kind of LEDs or whatever.
Do I have a model on here?
If you want to just send it to me in an email or something.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
We don't need to tie up the meeting for that.
Yeah. Okay. I'll look it up. And then I also have a smaller one.
Yeah, that's what I'd be looking for, is a smaller one. I've only got a
yeah.
70
This
millimeter
one works really well, but it's a little bit, unfortunately, when you turn it on, when you apply power to it, you folks know how lazy I am. This one, unfortunately, when you turn it on remotely, you've got to hit its own on button.
Yeah.
And I don't like ever leaving my chair, my office, when I image. So
yeah, my setup is totally portable. It's right there behind me on my shoulder.
Oh, okay.
I just point it straight up and put the flat panel on top of it.
Oh, then something like this would work.
It doesn't matter.
Work really, really well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, if you have the manufacturer or the model of those, I'd appreciate it. And I'll just
yeah, actually, for this one, yeah, well, I'll tell you what, I'll send you the link.
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and but I got this off of Amazon. I think it was $12.
Thanks, Dennis.
Yeah. All right, make myself a post-it here.
Glenn, you want to talk some more about flats, or?
Yes, that's a question I have with the lights, darks, flats, and dark flats. And again, that's new terminology for me. But so is stretching, which, I thought, what in the heck is stretching? And then here it is, it's just nothing more than a histogram. So I'm thinking, this is new terminology. These lights, do the FITS data from SLU have these lights, darks, and all that in there?
Yeah, the SLU images and that's what I actually don't like. You don't really have any control. They pre-calibrate the images, and so you can't download darks or flats from SLU. None of that calibration data is available, even at the astronomy level, and so you get what you get. And
yeah, there
so,
it is. That's what I thought. So I just want, because I hear this all the time, and that'll be down the road for me. So I don't have to worry about whenever I hear lights, darks. Don't worry about it. You're getting your FITS data. It is what it is. That's what you get. That's it.
And it should already be pre-processed. It should
Good. Now,
because you don't have access to the calibration files. So by default, they have to send you the calibrated files.
and again, the more, how can I put it? The more FITS data files you have, the better. So in other words, keep looking at an object and keep adding. Correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because that will add to your integration time.
Sure.
And
Okay. I'll keep going then. I mean, I've only been on it like 8 days or however,
right.
since Christmas. That's it. So I still got a long way to go to get enough data.
Well, in addition to that, though, I think it also, the more integration time you have, the more the longer duration exposures you have, the better your signal to noise ratio is in your final images.
Oh, that's
Right.
true.
At a certain point, you hit a point of diminishing returns
Right.
where it doesn't pay you back as much to continue to add. Usually, it depends on the object, but the biggest reason to get a lot of integration time is signal noise ratio, and to pull out fainter details in what you're imaging. But the image details, I think, after a certain point of time, you don't get as big of a bang for your buck. And there's all kinds of papers online about that too, if you want to something to read in the bathroom.
Right. Yeah. In fact, I show my students a curve that plots the number of frames versus the signal to noise improvement, and it is a real hockey stick curve. In fact, I was looking for it.
Square root function.
I think I saw that from you, Dennis, at one of
Yeah.
the
Isn't
presentations.
it as simple as saying the signal to noise ratio is proportional to the square root of the number of frames?
That is correct. And what this plot is it's n plus plotted versus the square root of n, and so it shows you, and that's a real hockey stick type curve. And I kind of chuckle, and then it flattens out at at around maybe an n of 100. The steepest, and this is what I use as a criteria. I set my acquisitions so that I have at least a 5-to-1 signal to noise ratio improvement. So I routinely do 25 subs, and because looking at this curve, the incremental improvement is incredibly slow after 25 frames, and in fact, at around 100, that curve at around 10-to-1 signal to noise, that curve is pretty much flat. So I kind of chuckle when I see folks publishing images. Oh, I did 400 frames or 500 frames. If they had stopped at 100, they probably wouldn't have seen any difference in the signal to noise. So there is a like Jim says, there's a diminishing return on
How
that.
long do you think, in that regard, then, on that same time, how long do you think for, like, say, if you were looking at, say, the Orion Nebula, M42, how long do you think you should, observe that before you get some decent data file? Half hour?
Yeah. Okay. So I just did Orion, and
I did too. I mean, I posted one too. I mean, it was great. I think I posted on the Google group. One, I was just amazed. I thought, it's just not much in there, but
yeah. Let me just show you. I forget.
You had a nice one. I saw that. You had a nice one like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think.
Right. Yep.
It was kind of like tannish or whatever. It was like,
Yeah.
more
So
golden.
on the H alpha, I did 26 subs.
And a
And
sub is what? What's a sub?
that's a single exposure.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's a raw frame.
Okay.
And yeah, actually I did O3 26 and S2 25. So I pretty much stick to that between 25 and 30 subframes. And again, to maximize the signal to noise without, spending, months doing the acquisition.
Okay, so how much for FITS data? How many of these subs are in a FITS data file from SLU? You're familiar with SLU.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, each FIT file that you download from SLU is one subframe.
Oh, okay. So I would need
You need
25 of those.
25 of them, right?
I would need 25 FITS data. Okay, all right.
So go back to your Orion, because it's very popular topic to image that. Also hard because you blow out the center. So did you shoot some subs at a very short and then try to integrate the short for the core and the longer ones for the rest of it, or how did you handle that?
Okay, so Adam Block deals with that very, very nicely. There is a process within PixInsight that allows you to essentially bring out the core detail of Orion, and as long as you're not fully saturated, and the dynamic range of these new CMOS cameras, there's 16 bits and 65K, and so no, I did that my last Orion image, not different. That's basically an old school way of doing it, but you can actually get really a super Orion and a detailed core with just a single image, single duration.
And what was that duration?
Yeah, so let me take a look here. Yeah, so I was actually using 15-minute subs on Orion. And let me just bring that up.
15-minute subs from Genesee Depot, Dennis?
Oh gosh, yeah. From Genesee Depot, I've gone as much as 40 minutes.
Holy cow!
I have Bortle 4 skies out here.
Really?
Yep.
Well, that's what
That
narrow
close
band
to
helps,
Waukesha?
too.
What's that?
And narrow band helps because your signal's so much less.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Narrowband images. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. This was on broadband. I do 600 seconds or 10 minute exposures. All right. So okay, here, let me. Okay, can you guys see Orion?
Yep.
Yeah, let me just pull full screen.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the one I saw. That's a great shot. Great editing.
Yeah, and as you know, there's a particular process in PixInsight. Forget what it's called. HD. Let me pick up PixInsight here.
HDR, right?
Is it the HDR multi-scale turn? No.
Yeah, I believe you're right. So
HDR multi-scale transform.
right. Yeah. So process icons. Yeah, HDRMT. It does take a little bit of time, and I play with all the layers and stuff. I may spend 10-15 minutes just with this transform, but boy, you can really get a a super image. And I'm sure and Adam has a whole little blog or a session on this HDR RMT.
I know the high schoolers are big on PixInsight for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The younger kids sure are.
Yeah. Well, and these are all my process steps, and so this has actually gotten really simplified ever since, you know, I started using noise exterminator and blur exterminator. I use the star exterminator to, you know, reduce the number of stars in my images, and then of course the SPCC here is really an amazing tool that uses
It's gotten a lot simpler over the years too.
yeah.
You don't have to plate solve the image and all. Well, it has to have a solution in it, but you don't need to. You used to have to search for your image and tell it what it was and all that kind of stuff when you ran it.
Yeah, the previous calibration software, the color calibration. Yeah, it was really hard to use.
Can you save your process so they come up all the time, like on that screen, or do you have to come in?
Oh yeah, no. So not only so what I do is when I'm working with a process and I've got all my parameters set, you basically can take this triangle and drag it here, and then go into and set the identifier, and so I can call that particular process, like say Bob, and there. Then it will remember all of the preset parameters, and then basically you just go up to process, and process icon and save process icons. Select a name and then say overwrite. So now Bob is permanently part of my workflow. And so, yeah, this is
that's good. That's good to know. I did not know that. That's good.
This is a real time saver.
Totally.
And then I put them in the order so that, at my age, I forget a lot of stuff. And so these are in the order of the steps. So it's not only remembering all of my presets, but it's also remembering the workflow that I do.
Okay. Those three, the Bill's star reduction method at the bottom there.
Yep.
That still exists. I got an update. The Pixen site knows that all disappeared from mine.
Yeah. So you got to be careful. You got to reload them. And I forget I actually have a link in Slack someplace on for these three star reductions.
Okay.
Well, actually, there's 4. This one just clones and renames the image. And
if you find it, can you send it to me in Slack or through?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because I don't have it anymore.
Yeah, sometimes the upgrades get rid of some of the stuff that you've pre-installed.
Yeah.
All right, hold on here. Let me stop sharing here. Okay. That was you, Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, so I got 2 things to send you: flat screen and
yeah. You better be careful. You're gonna have a big list of stuff from me, man.
And if you notice, I'm writing them down. Star reduction. All right. Cool. All right, I'm ready to hear Kevin's story. Also Nolan brought up an interesting concept, which would be, I think maybe a better discussion, and we can lay some groundwork here, but a better discussion with like the board or the observatory committee. Nolan wanted to discuss, remote access of the either the F scope or the Z scope.
Well, why don't I just cut to the chase? Maybe any scope, really. Even if we had a roll off with a simple 4-inch refractor or something like that, where people would have access to it remotely. That would be the ideal. I talked about a secondary backup where somebody's imaging and someone bootstraps in. But if we could automate like what a number of you have with your own home observatories, that would be ideal, because I've always thought about that myself. But as I mentioned in that email, I made an investment at Northern Cross Science Foundation, and to be honest with you, it's not the ideal situation there. I mean, you're in the same roll-off observatory where your visual scope is, and it's mostly a visual club. And we could not 10 years ago, 15 years ago, convince the board to have a separate small dome for the imaging unit. But I still made that investment. And then I live in an area where there's enough light pollution that I wouldn't have my own dome. And a couple of us, even 2 fellows that were with Northern Cross, we talked about whether we'd buy some property somewhere or lease some property and set something up. But one guy moved to darker skies up north, and the other fella just can't financially. So I thought, well, gee, for those of us that don't get out to MAS much, and I got out there for the first time in 2 years when I was imaging Jupiter with Lee the other a month ago. It would be, and then I think a lot of new members too, it would be cool, like you have, sitting in your own home, to be able to, when it's not being accessed, use that scope and gather data from basically our backyards. But in this case, it would be at the club's backyard. I mean, technologically, it's feasible. The problem is, especially in winter, and that if, let's say, even you have a roll-off observatory, will it close? I don't know about flats, how well that works for you, Dennis, in your situation, but to automate that, or maybe you just live with try-to technology where you have to do something at a later date with the flats, even though it's not ideal because you're not doing it at the same time you're taking your imaging. But something, I guess, really it is a board issue, but I thought it would be something to expand the use of the facilities that we have there, because I've thought about driving all the way out there and then you're doing some deep sky imaging, but the point is that you could get out there and all of a sudden the scene is terrible, or the well, that's more planetary, but let's say something else comes in, some clouds that the satellite imaging doesn't imagery, and so you do that once. But then you want to gather more data, and when you're driving a couple hours round trip, it just doesn't make sense. And and I know the SLU idea is really novel. I know Tom Schmidt-Kuntz was doing that, and Tom was with Northern Cross with me also. But Tom's been doing that probably before anybody else was doing SLU. He was doing that New Mexico imaging. And again, that's really a cool concept, but it would be very neat also to have the equivalent of that in our backyard at MAS, because then you're sort of taking a picture of what, if you stepped out your door where I live, I'm about 45, 50 minutes away from it, but it's still the same. I'm still in the same neighborhood, as opposed to imaging something from Australia or New Mexico or the like.
Well, Nolan, first of all,
it's the easier process for the snow than you think, Nolan. I'm serious.
Yeah.
You always if you want to make sure it's going to be open and closing all the time, the one thing you need to get rid of course, is the moisture. You need to have it heated, so you're not going to have any ability for that water to freeze. You know, once you get it where, like heated gutters, you know, where they don't freeze, they work, you know, when properly installed. The other one is you just make 2 covers for the scope.
What do you mean by 2 covers?
Well, you have one like on an angle that's gonna, you know, just brunt off, you know, the least for the snow, like an angled, just a thin
Got it.
slope, you know,
Mhm.
that will, you know, a steep angle, it's going to shed all that snow. And so the dome itself then will be covered, and you just open up the.
Yeah, that makes more sense probably than the heating, because heating.
True too. Well, you want to close that one, you got to close that shed too, you know, so that's where the heat would be. But you're right. It would be like, well, it's something that can be discussed. I think it's just an engineering problem, but good idea though. I like the idea, Nolan.
Yeah, I think
I'm thinking something simple, not necessarily. Now, if F-scope if that could be done, I mean, you already have the facility there. You've got it. So you've got a lot of it that's automated there. If that could ever be done, then you've got your basically mechanics in place. I was thinking something simple like a 4-inch refractor in the roll-off type, and have that automated so that there wouldn't be as much sunk cost. But obviously, if we could do it, I wouldn't think A&D scopes. Those are more planetary anyway. But if there's something with our existing equipment that could be done over time, that would be I think that would be used quite a bit, because think about how many times people aren't using that during the week because people are working or otherwise. I'm retired, but nevertheless, people are working. They could instead of making the trip out there during the work week, they could maybe gather some data.
Yeah, Jim and I both use F-scope and G-scope, so we know a lot about the computers and the networking and all that kind of stuff. And right now we're using old computers, and the software hasn't been updated in 6-7 years, and we're not on the internet for the imaging computers because we don't want to have updates, and we don't have any current licenses. We have old licenses, so we can't reload software onto a new computer. So this is a technical, and there's some cost to upgrade to get to a point where we can do that.
Okay.
As you look into it, as you take it to the board, the Kalamazoo Amateur Astronomy Club has a telescope down here in a friend of mine's roll-off roof. And I think one of the struggles they've had is the scheduling, how to use that telescope efficiently and effectively. And I think that has to be addressed. And a call to the, and I can, if someone's interested, I know the president over there, and those guys could talk, because you can handle the technology and so forth, but the scheduling, the devil is literally in the details. And there was a good, the Astro Imaging channel. I don't know if any of you guys watched any of their shows. Sunday nights are on YouTube. They had a guy that has a telescope with 4 other guys over here at Dark Sky, New Mexico, only about 20 miles away. It's where we went, Dennis.
Yeah.
And he talks, probably half of his presentation is just how they worked it out for scheduling, so they wouldn't be wasteful, and they'd be respectful, and they'd still be friends at the end. And, you can have 2 of the 3,
I can testify to that. My previous observatory was fully automated and remotely accessed, and I had 4 other. It seems to be a magic number. So there were 5 of us competing for time, and I lived in Middleton, and the observatory was actually on my property. But there was one other gentleman from Madison, one from Janesville, and so it was all over. And we had it set up. They can log in and open up. In fact, when it was my night, I could still be at work and open up the observatory and cool everything down. And if I got stuck at work, I could actually start imaging from my office at my place of work. So yeah, it's a great concept, but the scheduling issue created a lot of hard feelings, because there was this, we had a pretty simple schedule. There were 5 of us, and basically, you know, we just divided the month into 5, 5 slots, and essentially you had the telescope for 5 days, and if it was cloudy,
Yeah, you're out of luck.
yeah, it wasn't a sliding scale. So
Let me throw out something with respect to scheduling. And by the way, I know in a different way how difficult that is at Northern Cross, and I don't mean to be picking on them because I'm still a member, but they would allow two nights a month around new moon for the where you could use it for astrophotography, and otherwise it was open to school groups and other things to use the visual scope. So you can see how limiting that was from an astrophotography standpoint. But one thing that's sort of related to my alternative concept, but if we had something like that, you could also have people shout out what they were interested in imaging. And let's say somebody said Orion. Well, there may be other people that also would like to bootstrap into that while it's being imaged and get that data. So, you know, people would announce ahead of time what they'd be interested in doing, and then people could participate or not. Now, granted, that's not going to cover where people want to do 20 hours of the Cone Nebula or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's why I was thinking, well, maybe not f-scope where it's being used for even more sophisticated imaging, but maybe a 4-inch refractor in the roll-off observatory or something like that, where it isn't otherwise being used for imaging and could be. So you've got sort of two levels of people that want to put in the effort of going to the site, and they have the right, you know, they have the ability to do that, and those that want to maybe on a working together basis image a particular object.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I brought that up is the fellow I know that left Northern Cross and moved to northern Wisconsin. He set up his own observatory, and he doesn't have very good internet. But he connected me through Splashtop, and literally I'm there here watching what he's imaging.
Mm-hmm.
But then he had to download it, and then he had to send it in the mail, proverbially in the mail, a little chip, CD, not a CD, an SD chip to me, which I then had to put in my computer to get the data. So obviously that wasn't ideal. But the Splashtop connection worked fine.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
again,
I think it's a
something
great
for
idea, Nolan.
future discussion, and I thought I'd just sort of bring the subject forward to.
I do think it's a good idea, Nolan, and you got at least 2 people that are on the observatory committee and on the board in this meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I think it's worth investigating and looking into. But like Mike said, I think for us to be able to do that at the club, we would need to invest in some newer computer equipment that can be connected to the internet and have regular updates applied and that sort of thing. Right now, we're using software that's either freeware like Nina or stuff that's old and is only still functioning because it's not connected to the internet, and it's not calling home and saying, hey, we're just license is expired or whatever. So, I mean, we do have to get our house in order in that respect before we.
Well, I'd be willing, Jim, I'd probably be willing to contribute some bucks towards it. I'm 72. I figure I've got a few years left of some mental acuity.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good idea. And, we all know a guy who knows how to make domes automate and open and close automatically remotely without having to go outside. Right? So it's certainly something that could be potentially done. It's just a matter of, we have to talk about it as a group and determine if we want to spend the money and the effort to make it happen.
Yeah, I don't think
it's
it's
good.
today or tomorrow kind of thing, but certainly
I'm more interested in setting up a scope in Kevin's yard and using that for a remote scope for the club.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute.
No,
I got first dibs. I got dibs on one of Kevin's piers.
I have 2 empty piers, guys, on a roll-off roof.
There's an RMIT University. RMIT has a robotic optical observatory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of folks do.
Probably, do they make commercial units?
Everything in our world is put together piece by piece, whether it's the software, the internet hook, and so forth.
Right.
And you can find integrators who charge, $20,000 to $50,000 to get you a robotic system up and running.
Right. You can get that done. Sure.
Right. But most people, understand, like Jim and Mike and Dennis and others, what they've done to put it together, and it works for them. So sure. There's a lot to it. And in fact, that's a good segue to the next topic to keep things moving along. So we finish. I have a dome observatory, which I got a new telescope for, new to me, almost 2 years ago. And I've been busy over the last couple of winters getting it put together. And I finally gave up on the imaging train that came with it. It was an old SBIG camera. And none of the drivers really worked with the newer software that was out there. And PhD 2 said, no, not our problem. The new owners of SBIG said, oh, that was SBIG, we're diffraction limited, buy a new camera from us. And I didn't. But ultimately, I wound up getting a CWO camera and filter wheel and OAG, because that's what the SBIG system had. And then it was a matter of getting it together. And one of the reasons I'm talking about this is just the depth of resources we have here in the Slack group and in the club. Because as I was going through this, I was running into problems. I mean, I measured my back distance for this new imaging train 3, 4, 5, 6 times. I've never done a spreadsheet before in my life, but I did for this. And because there were just so many components, and I was adding and subtracting, and I could not get it in focus. At the end of the day, with some advice from some of the guys on Slack, I wound up adding 10 millimeters of additional back focus. And there was no way that I was that far off from my calculations, but it didn't matter what the calculations were. It's what it took to get it in back focus. And by the way, I think I've introduced extra dust bunnies. So it'll be very interesting to see if the flats I took tonight are going to clean up all the dust bunnies in the test images that I've taken over the last couple of nights.
Yeah.
So that was one issue. Once I got it in focus, then all at once the astrophysics scope was not pointing at the object, and it couldn't plate solve. So there were 2 problems. Again, we're fortunate in this hobby to have people that respond. I use the SkyX, and it's by Software Bisque, and I had Tom Bisque respond to a posting I put there. Now, at first, he was very irritated with me because it's like I've answered this question a dozen times and blah, 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 blah. And then about 30 minutes later, he came back and said, oh, I reread your question. So what he was thinking I was asking, I wasn't. He said, oh, what you need to do? And it turned out to be something very simple, and it was just slew to the object. Then to the extent that you're off, move it to its center. And then in a strange place, I thought, under telescope, it had a sync button.
Right.
Not in the camera, not in, so forth. But when you turn on the telescope, it's kind of like connect, unpark, sync. I hit the sync button and I was synced. But I still wasn't able to plate solve on a closed loop slew. And I got help from astrophysics, and Roland there came back and said, well, you need to, make certain that you have the right binning, because I'm binning 2x2 on everything because of the size of the scope and the smallness of the pixels. And within software BISC, there were like 4 different places you had to make certain that they were all lined up with the right imaging scale. And I do like 2 out of the 3, and it would then mess up the 4th one. And I finally got them all right, and had a couple of nice nights of starting to collect data. And then someone was talking about roofs rotating observatory domes. Well, mine lost its mind. And so 2 nights ago, it didn't know where it was. And it certainly wasn't where the telescope was. And last night I was out there looking up at the scope and the slit and manually moving it so I could get my last little chunk of data. But again, the software and hardware I'm using is 20-some years old. And but the owner that put it together, he's been on the phone with me, he's been emailing me, and I just shipped off the hardware. I think there's probably a bad chip on the board after we went through all of the troubleshooting. And again, this is a wonderful hobby where there's all kinds of people, whether it's people at this club, the people on the Slack group, and a lot of the equipment manufacturers and software people that are willing to stick in there with you and really care about getting it working. So I've collected some initial data on M1 because I've always wanted to try that with a larger telescope. And I only have 12 5 minutes, but it's really just to see if everything works. And I hope tomorrow to be able to process it and just see where the telescope is, the culmination, and so forth. But there's way more effort than I could ever have imagined in getting one of these things commissioned and up and running. But last night when it was taking pictures one after another and it was guiding flawlessly and the skies were dark, it was beautiful. It was wonderful.
All right, good. It's time for me to come back.
Yes. Dennis was down here and was before I decided to get the new camera. And one of the advantages of this group and Slack and so forth is, like down here, I live in a community of astronomers. I mean, in half my neighbors are astronomers. Now, mind you, I don't have that many neighbors, but there's probably 50 observatories within 5-mile radius of my place. And there's at least 2 of these shared facilities where you can, put your scope and they'll roll off the roof for you. We don't have to shovel snow. And they'll give you power and they'll give you internet, but everything else is on your own.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So bottom line, Nolan, everything is possible. And I'm on a project with Carroll University, and we are building a fully remotely controlled observatory out at the Pleasant Springs Nature Center there by 59 and 83. And the goal is that the students in the astronomy class will be able to, from the physics building on campus at Carroll, be able to, because I have like 30, 40 students in the class, they'll be able to operate the telescope as if they were on site. And so I think bottom line, the issue is not technical, it is political. And so getting the board and the observatory committee to cough up money for new, I'm embarrassed about the computers that are in the Z-scope, and I mean
They're bad. Yeah.
I mean, it's insane. These are 20-year-old computers, or at least. They don't have any memory. They don't any licenses. I mean,
The hard drives are small.
Yeah, it's really an embarrassment for such a sophisticated club to have their top 2 astro imaging observatories being run by such archaic equipment.
Dennis, is there a demand in universities for these type of remote robotic telescopes? Is it, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm trying to ask? Is there a demand now?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I kind of created the demand because I got tired of trying to bring 20, 30 students out to my house. Because we didn't have an active observatory at Carroll. I volunteered to use my observatory as the teaching site, and well, that's a real pain in the butt having that many people out at my house, and I mean, I have to rearrange the entire house, and I don't even have that many chairs, so we've decided to set up the remote observatory, but I don't know. I think that's kind of a unique situation. I don't think your typical astronomy department will have they'll have their own telescope on campus, maybe up on the roof of their building or on the campus someplace. But the remote access, it does take some specialty and some unique configurations to do that. But it certainly is really a cool idea. But you have to have the remote location, as well. We were just very fortunate. Carroll owns 40 or 50 acres out in that area there by 59 and 83. And so politically, it was very difficult. Well, I mean, relatively difficult to get some allotted space out there. And so but MAS, you're just going to have to convince the observatory committee that this is something that would be good for the membership in general, which I think it would be. But then you got to convince the board to spend the money. So it's a political battle more than a technological battle.
Right now, we got 2 projects going on right now. We're trying to get up the stellar view and the Mach 1 and the roll-off roof, and then get the 10-inch on
Mhm.
the CGM mount in that little shed. So neither one of those are working right now. So those are the primary projects right now.
Yeah, yeah. So there'll be a queue for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
So we had a couple of topics that we might use for, or we might try to follow up in future meetings. One of them was a discussion on RGB only versus LRGB. And I raised that a couple of meetings ago, and I thought I was going to get lynched. And Dennis was leading it with, I got the rope, where's the tree? But there's an astronomer, a former professor of planetary geology here in the Tucson area. And he's put together some very thoughtful insights into what happens with that L. Where does that go? Because, L is not part of the color wheel, if you will. What is it really getting you, and so forth. So it's an interesting, very thought-provoking discussion. And I, chatted with him, and he'd be willing to come and, make a little presentation and have a discussion. He's the same one, Dennis, that looked at, and he was using a telescope, I think an eye telescope down in Chile, and where he was getting all the data, and looked at narrowband, and then narrowband plus RGB stars. And he looked at the two together,
right.
And he says he can't really tell the difference. That with SBCC and all the other tools, it's, it might have been true years ago, but again, with some of the software that we have today and some of the imaging equipment that we have today, it might not be necessary. So, if we were to get him, we could ask him his thoughts on that. I tried having a discussion with Adam Block on that, and I was the blockhead on that discussion.
Yeah.
And,
well, that would be terrific if you could get that guy. And by the way, I've now put the rope back in the garage, Kevin. I've softened my position on that. Looking at some spectral information and looking at how the images are actually formed. I've actually taken a softer view, because one of the things that used to be done is which I really was surprised at, is that the luminance was done at 1x1 binning, and the colors were done in a 2x2 or binning, so they were at even lower resolution. And if you fly down that path, then truly the luminance does add the detail to the image. And the low resolution color components are basically just colorizing the luminance. But my guess is this gentleman's going to suggest that you do, and I do this now myself. I do all of the LRGB all at 1x1, binning, and so that I'm getting full resolution on each of the channels. And then that begs the question: if you look at the spectral content of your broadband filters, you're going to get the exact same results, and adding the luminance is not going to contribute to that image. Yeah,
Right.
there are slight little gaps, so slight little D's in between the transfer functions of the RGB filters. But that's pretty minuscule versus the the bandwidth itself of the filters.
Well, and I think the other thing he'll talk about is when you have the L data, you have to dump it in an R or a G or a B, or I should say an and, not or, channel.
Right. Yeah.
And as you do that, someone's making the decision, maybe the program, maybe you, as to how many of those photons, because you don't know whether those are red or green or blue photons, they're luminance, they're everything, and you're just arbitrarily dumping them in those buckets. So,
Right. Okay.
the other topic, and this is going to depend on how many people have reflectors as opposed to refractors, is collimation using artificial intelligence. And there's a guy, Dr. Gaston Badeau, and he's come up with hardware that he has, the guy that has the on angle guider as opposed to the off angle, off axis guider, excuse me. And but he has this program which analyzes defocused stars and tells you exactly how to move your mirrors. And he's trained it on every type of kind of popular telescope. And if you have something different, he'll train his program on it. And he's spoken at the Astro, the Advanced Imaging Conference, and a couple of others. And again, I've corresponded with him. I have his software. I'm going to try it on my scope once everything else running. But again, it's another use of artificial intelligence in our world, even though it's becoming very popularized in the press these days. It's these small little things, be it RC Astro or what Gaston is doing, is going to be interesting. So we can get him at some point as well.
Well, those are great topics going forward. Yeah.
Is this software available online or no?
Yeah, the software is free. The model you got to pay for, but it's not bad. I mean, I think, the nice thing with the software is you can play with it and kind of see how it works and so forth. And I think, and it's like how many times you use the model. So you buy like 100 uses, and I think it was, it wasn't that much money, $7,500 or something like that. And I tried it on some data that wasn't really right for it. And it's really cool the way it works. So basically you take a defocused star, you use a red filter to knock out some of the seeing issues. And it literally tells you which screw to turn to move the telescope to get it right. And you can run it real time, or you can just, feed it and get instant feedback. And he shows why it is so much better than just eyeballing your collimation, trying to see if it's right, and how sometimes your eyeball will produce worse results. So,
did you say $7,500?
No, 75 or 100.
Oh, I was going to say, okay, it's time to buy a refractor. Oh my
Kevin,
gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
Kevin, were those topics that you were suggesting for this meeting or for the Milwaukee group?
No, for this meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, anyone from the Milwaukee group and the Madison group are always welcome to join here. So, but
yeah, I've changed the invitation now. It goes out to every member of MAS to join this group. I do have to. I might have lost I never had it, but Matt was inviting the Madison Astronomical Society to this group.
Yeah, I didn't get an invite for tonight. I'm in Madison.
You're
Yeah, no,
okay. You're Madison folk.
Yeah.
And,
Yep. I just used the link from 2 months ago.
yeah. So
Um,
I'm gonna have to. So we're gonna have to make sure that because right now I just go to our own Google group and send out the invite. And I guess Matt was sending out a separate invite to the Madison folks.
Well,
And
in fact, he didn't. What he did is he sent, and it was forwarded through the Milwaukee or the Madison Club. You know, here's the link that'll work forever, and it was kind of a one-time thing. And
no,
I chatted with one of the board members yesterday, and we really need to check with Matt, because I think the easiest thing is for us just to send them the notice the same time you send yours out, and I can do that because I'm a member of both clubs. And,
okay.
but I didn't want to do it till I chatted with Matt, because he had this. I went back and reread his thing. It was kind of like, here's your notice, it's good forever. And that was like the end of the discussion. And
Yeah, but
people need reminders.
if you want to bring in new people from Madison, that's probably a good idea. But maybe even just putting something on the Slack, because I was looking there today and I saw nothing about the meeting for tonight.
Yeah, and that's
Maybe
my
we
fault.
even need a channel on the Slack for this meeting.
Well, we in the past we used to announce it just on Slack, and then
Right.
Matt wanted us to do it more broadly. And quite honestly, I've fallen off at repeating it on the Slack channel. So we'll put it in the general, which covers everybody there.